Want to answer a question from a commenter who writes in, and she says her daddy's got those cameras. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. She says, hi there, your videos have come across my FYP more often since I've interacted with you a few times. I'm currently living with my father, and he has cameras all around the house, even hidden ones, multiple in one room to be sure he can catch every angle. At first, it was for my grandmother who developed Alzheimer's in her last years with us, but she passed away 6 years ago. Not only are the cameras still up, but he has installed more since I've moved back in. I was wondering what this alludes to when it comes to your scope of knowledge. I definitely wouldn't mind you talking about this and explaining in depth um, in a video. I would just like to stay anonymous. Thank you. So thank you so much for asking this question. Without knowing you or your dad, I can't really say for sure why he's doing this. With that being said, I have known a few people who have done this. So I don't know if your father has ever been robbed before or had people trespassing in or on his property. But, if someone's ever been robbed or experienced some sort of trauma where someone's broken in their home or something like that, they could certainly become hyper vigilant and paranoid if something like that has ever happened. So that's number one. Number two, if someone becomes, they can become paranoid, just in general. And I find that this is true in certain personality disorders and with certain mental health disorders where people do just become paranoid in general, and so they may believe that people are out to harm them. People want to steal from them, even their own family members. So they start to develop a paranoia about people sort of moving about in their house or wanting to do something, and they kind of have all of these conspiracy theories and things like that they've sort of concocted up into their minds about what someone is trying to do to them. Number three, again, I don't know, and so this is an allegation, but just some thoughts your dad might, you know, not your dad, but I've known people who have done this when they are participating in illegal activities. So if they're selling things that they maybe shouldn't be doing, if they're bootleggers, boosters, and people that sort of have a lot of criminal activities and also have maybe what comes with that, such as sketchy people in and out of their home, they may tend to do that. And so they've got cameras, they've got all the surveillance. They may be worried about, law enforcement coming to catch them in the things that they're doing. Number four, because you said that, it was related to your grandmother and then you, it could be pertaining to you and women and his house in general. And again, I don't know your father and I don't want to make accusations or anything like that. So this isn't that. But with women in the house, and this person being hyper vigilant and having cameras in all areas around the house, depending on where they're at, if they're in the bedroom, if they're in the bathroom, then I would say that could be something that is potentially much more sinister. And there's usually not a positive reason that's aligned with that. It's usually something that could be more sexually based or more control based when it comes to having, people in his vicinity, meaning like he has to keep a watchful eye on you all at all times, and he has to be in control of women that are in his domain, and that he may even be looking at you or other women or people in his domain in a way that's inappropriate. So I don't know, but without knowing him, I would say that it's something that you would want to explore. There could be potentially other things that are maybe a little bit more innocent, like, for example, or maybe not as innocent, but are still related to control and surveillance. Like maybe he's concerned about you, concerned about some of the actions that you've had. He's concerned about you having people in and out of his home, or you doing things in his home that he doesn't necessarily approve of. And so, if he's got like deadbolts and things like that on the bedroom, and things like that, where he kind of wants to keep you out of spaces and he wants to make sure that you're not going in certain spaces. I would say that that's more about control and or possibly even paranoia as well. But so good luck with that. It may be something that you want to explore with him to see what kind of answer he gives with you. Usually, people that don't trust you will tell you that. I don't want you in my room. I don't want you, I have to watch what you're doing at all times. Don't go here, don't go there. You need to be in this house by, such and such a time. Usually they will tell you that. But if there's like paranoia or sketchy activities going on, or much more sinister things that he might be thinking, they may be a lot more guarded around that. So I would be curious to know if you ask him about this and what sort of answer he gives. And you can always message me if you feel like you don't want to share on the post. But thanks so much for asking this. And lastly, one other thing I will say about death and mortality, that sometimes makes people ratchet up in fear and anxiety, and start to question like their own mortality, and everybody else's mortality around death and dying. It could also bring about mental illness that's been stable, due to a certain person. So a lot of times, when people have mental health issues, certain people do help to stabilize them. And then when those people pass, that those things can certainly spin out of control. Things that may have been contained or maybe, subdued before can certainly spin out of control. So that anxiety and that fear can certainly ratchet up around death, dying, his mortality, your mortality, or just people in general. So those are, so there could be some mental health concerns going on there. Also, substance abuse will also bring about this type of stuff if people start drinking or engaging in substance use after someone's passing. Again, those feelings could also ratchet up as well. Thanks so much. You guys take care.